Welcome to game night here at the Shelby County Reporter. I'm sports editor Wesley Hallman here with our sports intern Davis Potter. First, we're going to take a look back last week at our game of the week. We had Montevallo traveling to Vincent. We knew both teams were pretty even coming in, and that was the case. Both teams scoreless at halftime. Montevallo defeated the Yellow Jackets 21-14, got a late fourth quarter touchdown from R.J. Scaife to pull out the win. What was your impression of this game, Davis?
Yeah, you talked about it was scoreless at halftime. I mean, it was really a tale of two halves for both teams. After being shut out at halftime, that all the points obviously scored in the second half. The offenses kind of made the halftime adjustments, figured it out, started putting some points on the board, and there at the end, it kind of became the R.J. Scaife show. And the impressive thing was, he suffered what people might have thought would have been a serious leg injury to his left leg there, and weren't sure if he was going to come back in the game, and he came back with a vengeance, really, with the game tied at 14, ripped off a 21-yard touchdown run, with less than 2 minutes to go. The game seemingly might have gone into overtime, but he rips that off, then he comes back and intercepts a pass there in the Yellow Jackets' next possession to really seal the game. And, just a big win for Coach Williams, his second win after getting his first one last week. And, I think they found something there with their running game. They had Garius Chappell, too, complimenting Scaife there in the backfield with 145 yards. And, Scaife added 130 of his own. So I think they've really found something there, really exploited something that the Yellow Jackets defense. I think the key for them is just to kind of carry that over to region games now. Picked up this win. They're trying to, carry that on to the region games. They've lost 2 of their first 3. Carry that over, try to be more consistent, try to get some region wins now and get this team even more confidence going forward.
You're right, Davis. The Montevallo running game certainly has picked things up the last couple of weeks. RJ rushed for 234 yards a week ago, and then he comes back with more than 100 yards in this game as well. Gary Chappelle rushing for more than 100 yards. The Bulldogs' rushing attack right now is really strong. It will be interesting to see if they can continue that as they jump back into region play. Meanwhile, Vincent played really well in this game, certainly had a chance to win it. They still, I think, have confidence heading into their final region games that they're the team to beat in that region, wanting to capture a region championship up down the stretch in the next couple of games. And the defense played really well against these strong running backs from Montevallo. So I think both teams right now, they've got momentum going into the home stretch here with the final region games of the season. And another big game last week, we saw Briarwood Christian travel to Vestavia Hills. The Lions dropped their first game of the season. It was really close at halftime, but they just couldn't make a comeback in the second half. What was your take, Davis?
Yeah, this is probably one of the more anticipated games here in our coverage area. You had Briarwood, one of the top teams in 5A, undefeated, and Vestavia, a really good team in 6A. They were also undefeated. So you had those two teams coming in still, undefeated on the season. And, you talked about it there a little bit, tied at halftime. Vestavia jumped out to a quick 10-0 lead. Briarwood comes back and ties it on a Ben Kraft touchdown pass, a couple minutes before halftime. And then, the turning point of the game really was the first possession for the Lions in their second half. They're driving the ball, seemingly having all the momentum, and they kind of, run some form of a trickeration there, kind of a wildcat. They, snap the ball to Matthew Ferruto, a direct snap. He gives it off to Tanner Cunningham, who's going in motion, tries to pitch it back to Kraft. Kraft, muffs the exchange, puts the ball on the ground, and the Rebels recover it at their own 45-yard line, march down, get a field goal out of that, and, that was the end of the night, really, for the Lions. The Rebels outscored them 24-0 in the second half for the game's only points of the second half, beating them 34-10. And, the Lions had 4 turnovers on the night. And anytime you turn the ball over 4 times, it's hard to beat anybody, let alone a really good team from the, a Class 6A, a class above you. So, I think, it's just one of those games where, they're going to have to learn. They're going to have to, really, I think, Coach Yancey's going to have them practicing ball security this week. And, just look for them to, try to get back on the winning track, getting into region play next week at Talladega.
Well, this certainly is probably the toughest game they'll have this year, playing in the Class 6A Vestavia Hills. That's what makes Briarwood different from most 5A teams, is when they step out of region play, they take on the best of the best. I think even despite the loss, that the Lions will still learn something from this game. They'll take it into their final region games. The defense still is really strong. I think we'll see Vestavia put a lot of points on a lot of teams this year. So I think Briarwood's still in good shape to come back, get back in region play, pick up a few region wins. It's going to be difficult to see any team that can beat them in that region the rest of the season. So they're likely looking at an undefeated region schedule again, and then heading into the playoffs, they'll have the Vestavia game to look back and make some corrections, and I think they're still a contender for the Class 5A championship game. In our game of the week this week, we've got Oak Mountain traveling to Thompson. The Warriors picked up their first win last week. They defeated Carver. Meanwhile, Oak Mountain struggled again, losing to Northridge. They didn't score a point in that game. What's your take on this week's game, Davis?
This is a matchup I think you have, teams riding two different waves of emotions. I mean, Thompson got their first win of the season last week over Carver Birmingham, 23-14, and their defense really stepped up late in that game. They had 3 interceptions in the game total, but 2 of them came late in the fourth quarter, with the game, still in the balance, and Terry Carter picked off a pass and returned it for a touchdown to really extend the Warriors' lead and seal the game for them, basically. Oak Mountain, I really don't know what to say about Oak Mountain. I mean, Coach Harris, he's not seeing any quit out of his team. His players are still getting 100%. He's really pleased with the way his defense is playing, considering how bad the offense has been. But I mean, they got shut out to Northridge last week, 23-0. Committed 7 turnovers, and that's not a recipe for success against anybody. And they're still going to come out and keep fighting and keep trying to get that first win. But right now, I think I'd have to give the edge to Thompson in this one. They're probably a little bit more confident going into next week's games.
I agree with you, Davis. You look at this Thompson team. They did, they got beat really bad by Hoover, but a lot of teams have this season. Other than that, they've had a lot of close games, winning an overtime in the season opener against Stanhope Elmore. Yeah. Coming off this win last week, it'll be interesting to see, can they build some momentum and maybe give a few region teams a run for their money in the next couple of weeks. For Oak Mountain, like you said, right now it's been really difficult for Coach Harris at Oak Mountain, and as much as Thompson has struggled the past 2 years, the one team they have had success again has been Oak Mountain. I really don't see any difference this year. Yeah. I expect the Warriors to come out on their home field, be playing with an emotional edge after their first win last week, and first win playing under Coach Bruce Hill at the school. I think that the Thompson Warriors will have the edge in this one. In another big game this week, we've got Pelham traveling to Hoover. Sports intern Davis Potter sits down with city editor Neal Wagner to get his take.
Also this week, we have Pelham traveling to Hoover this week. Pelham picked up their second win of the year, beating Pleasant Grove 24-15 last week. Neal, this is a big game, a big test for the Panthers, really facing the Bucks, always a tough team. The Buccaneers have only given up 10 points in their first 5 games. What's your take on this matchup?
A few weeks ago I said this would have been just a complete slaughter, for the Buccaneers on Pelham. But after seeing Pelham the way they played last week against the Spartans of Pleasant Grove, it's just I don't know what happened, last week during practice or something like that. But head coach Brett Burnett, he's got those kids playing really good. They looked incredibly impressive in their win over the Spartans last week. Yeah. It's still going to be a really, really tough game. Going to the Buccaneer Stadium, it's going to be a really hostile environment. The crowd's going to be fired up because it is kind of a rivalry game with the schools being so close. Pelham hasn't had a whole lot of success over the Buccaneers the past several years, but depending on how they play, I think they have a really good shot to win, Davis.
Yeah.
Check back next week to see how the biggest games turned out. I'm Wesley Hallman.
And I'm Davis Potter.
And we'd like to thank Neal Wagner for making a special appearance this week. This has been Game Night at Shelby County Reporter.